Well, it's great to be in San Diego. We're excited to start off the tournament. Obviously, we've been doing our due diligence, and obviously we got a formidable opponent in LIU, and they've had a great season. So we're looking forward to the matchup, and got a lot of respect for what we're stepping into.
Hi, Tommy. Welcome to San Diego. Jacob Aries, UATV Student News. What's the biggest growth you've seen from this team since November?
Wow, a lot. We obviously got off to a good start this season, but the one thing I'll give this team credit for, I really feel like it's improved over the course of the season, and it could be young players just gaining experience. It could be teammates just learning how to play together. But I've seen a lot of growth from this group from day one, and honestly, I've seen a lot of growth from this team in the last couple of weeks, and one of the things we've tried to strive for is just to improve week by week. And, with this, and that could be a number of ways. That could be in your base defense. That could be adding something here and there. So a growth mindset is something that we really value. And I think these guys have exemplified that all season.
Coach, this is Brent with USA Today. You've got a lot of production this year out of freshmen. What was your roster strategy there as opposed to loading up in the portal?
Yeah, for me, it was simple calculus. The COVID eligibility was kind of timing out. And so I just didn't feel like two things. I didn't feel like there was going to be as many quality transfers in the transfer portal, for one. And two, I thought it was going to be overpriced. The simplest answer for us is we were able to get involved with freshmen that we really believed in from day one. And, I've had the good fortune of playing against Duke, a few times. And John, is a good friend of mine. And, we played Duke twice last year. At the start of the year, they played them at our place and they got us. And, wasn't a great, probably well-played game either side, but they came out on top. You might have felt like they were a little bit young but really talented. We played them at the end of the season. I didn't feel like they were young. I just thought they were really good. And so we were able to get involved with some freshmen that we felt could be just big time impact players in college basketball, no matter what year or what class they were.
And do you expect to keep most of them next year?
That stuff all plays out here, and we've made a commitment to each other, and I'm not just saying this to gloss over any questions, but just to stay in the moment. And we're going to enjoy this experience and stay fully focused on this moment. And, all that stuff will take place, after the season. So there's no reason for us to get emotionally caught up in it now.
Hey, Tommy, Pat Forty from Sports Illustrated. Last week against Iowa State, Burries didn't play great, but then he bounced back and played phenomenally well in the championship game. What is special about his makeup?
Well, Pat, I don't know. I might have just disagree with you, and I'm not trying to, be a contrarian, but I thought we played pretty well against Iowa State. I just think they're really good, and I think they're really hard to play against. And they got off to a good start, 14-2, and we had to battle back in the game. And so I thought there were stretches in that Iowa State game that we played really well. And I thought they played equally as well, and we were fortunate enough to kind of have the ball in the last possession and make a shot. I think the challenge after that was, when you have an emotional game like that is, making sure that you're able to kind of put it away and move forward for a championship game. And so I thought our guys, obviously we have a lot of respect for Houston. So, we wanted to get back out there and prove that, we were able to maturely move past the semifinal and get ready for the final. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I thought you guys played great.
Okay. Sorry. There's a lot of things, like a jet engine in here. So, and my hearing's going. I'm getting a little older. So, that's a great question. Braden obviously didn't have a great semifinal game. And listen, I'm going to give Iowa State some credit for that. Iowa State's really hard to play against. If you haven't played against them a number of times as a player or even a coach, it's different. So you got to acknowledge that. And he didn't play great, nor did Koa. And they were both able to kind of put that behind themselves and bounce back and play great against a good Houston team in the championship game. Those guys are really good players, and they're actually matured beyond their years when it comes to being competitors. Sorry about that.
Hey, Coach. John Macaluso with News 4 Tucson. Last time we had a chance to talk to you was on Selection Sunday. We were all still learning about LIU, but now that some time has passed and obviously you're playing them tomorrow, what really stands out about them?
Well, they're really scrappy, and they have hoopers. They've done a great job putting together a team that makes sense. I mean, they got they're committed to a style of play. That's going to be aggressive. Mostly man-to-man defense. They're really good in the gaps and really handsy. And then offensively, their actions might not be complicated, but they have good individual players, and they put them in situations that they're comfortable in. So we know we're going to have to accommodate for that, and we're going to have a game plan heading into the game. They got kind of a dynamic forward, number 33 Fuller, and he's just a really good player. I mean, he's leading them in scoring. He kind of scores inside out. He makes threes. He's a bigger guy that can kind of handle the ball in certain situations. So he's kind of one of those matchup nightmare guys that we're going to have to make some decisions on.
Tommy, David Kelly, Wildcats, Radio 1290. At times, Rod will put four guards on the floor. What can be difficult about defensing that?
Well, in the game today, that's not uncommon. A lot of people are playing four guards, and at times he will play a smaller lineup. Obviously the difficulties can be sometimes it spreads you out a little bit, and maybe they have some matchup advantages where you have a guy that's not a super strong perimeter defender guarding a perimeter player. I know we're built for it. We've been facing it all year, and I know our bigger guys are good perimeter defenders. So for me, when teams go small, I usually like to double down on going big and seeing how they respond to that.
And what update can you give us on Jaden and his wrist, how that progressed through the week?
I haven't heard one thing about the wrist all week, so it seems to be in good shape. He's been practicing normal, nothing on his hand, so he's looked good to me.
Tommy Tailmack, Arizona Republic. Curious, you were talking earlier about the COVID era guys, COVID eligibility. You about kind of sorts of assessments roster building and kind of how that process goes when you're deciding the guys that you want to target in the offseason.
Well, it happens through a lot of conversations. And honestly, my approach to it's very simple. I don't have a crazy master plan. The first thing you got to figure out is what can you realistically get, and you got to identify that, because if you're being inefficient and you're chasing things that either A, or you're not going to be able to attain, or B, aren't going to be good enough for what you want to do, you've got to be able to eliminate those as fast as you can. So you're dealing with, you're dealing with situations where, it could be a reality to get them. I think that's one. And two, you have to make one good, simple decision and see where it leads to the next good, simple decision. I think if you're getting, out ahead of yourself and you have this master plan, but it's going to take 5 decisions to get there, good luck getting 5 decisions in a row right. So that's the way I approach it. Just very simple, a little bit methodical and with some patience. Some patience and some perseverance and some confidence, you're going to be able to figure it out.
Hey, Tommy. Chris Brown, AZ Bandcat Sports. You talked a little bit about the balance of the team, right? The freshmen not playing great against Iowa State, but bouncing back against Houston. But I think the other side is just kind of the maturity and poise that everybody on the team is playing with throughout the season. Not, every time there's a run, seem to kind of weather that storm, big opponents, hostile environments. Can you just talk a little bit about that maturity and how you can carry that into March?
Yeah, this group's really steady. This is not a group that gets too high or too low. And, one thing we always talk about is just like putting ourselves in position to be in position. And how do you do that? Well, you usually do it by executing a bunch of simple things effectively over time. And then that's what builds the platform for runs, is being able to do that. We don't want to be a team that's, overreactive to anything good or bad. And so I just think having that steadiness and having competitive players, and you get down in some games and you just kind of take a breath and say, okay, let's figure out a way to claw back in this game. We don't need to panic, and then let's get the game close enough to give ourselves a chance to figure it out as we go. And then if you seem to have figured it out and you land a big blow and you're able to make a run on them and have a little bit of a lead, well, then how can you manage that lead down the stretch of the game to get the result you want? Honestly, that's been our approach, and the guys have been really consistent in delivering on that.
Eric Orobaro with The Athletic. Kind of going off of that, there's a lot of talk about how consistent, mature, steady you guys are. What's the biggest thing you want to see this team unlock right now heading into
Unlock?
rest of the
Nothing.
tournament?
I want us to be ourselves, 100% normal. I mean, if we are at the point now where we have to start doing stuff we haven't done before, I probably haven't done my job. So, we wanted to stay. We want to get out there. Hey, here's about how I'm breaking it down. The ball is going to go up tomorrow at 10:35 in the morning. We're either going to win the jump or we're going to lose the jump. From there, we're going to figure it out. Next possession. We're not going to overcomplicate it, or, I have no, I don't know what our first media timeout is going to be like, because I'm going to figure it out when we're in that, based on how the game's going.
Tommy over here, Pat Paris from KGUN 9 in Tucson. We talked to the three seniors that were sitting up here before you came in. How much do you rely on them to let those freshmen know just what this is going to be like tomorrow when the ball tips off?
Those are great questions. I haven't sensed that our freshmen don't know what this is about. And, I told our freshmen, hey, if you guys want a state championship, yeah. Okay, let's just go win another state championship. And the way you win a state championship, you win a state championship game by game. This just happens to have the word national in front of it. But it's no different approach.